Good afternoon and welcome. I'm just going to give a couple of seconds to allow most of our attendees to come in before we start the business of the day. Please, sorry, we had some technical issues. That's why we are behind some minutes before the meeting commences. Please, we are very sorry for that. In addition to this, I can see a couple of familiar names on our attendees list. That's good. You are welcome once again. We're happy to have you guys here, please.
So I think I'm gonna start, right? Let's start, or we want to wait 1 or 2 more minutes? I see only 11 participants.
Okay. Good afternoon once again and welcome. For those of us that are joining us for the first time, my name is Gagba Shukoduncho Yahaya, and I'm the training coordinator with the Temple Small Business and Development Center. At the Temple Small Business and Development Centers help small businesses start and grow. We offer free one-on-one consulting and a variety of low to no cost webinars. We are proud to be part of the nationally accredited network of the Small Business and Development Centers, which has over 1,000 networks across the United States of America. We are here this afternoon for a webinar on import and export products. Being a webinar, all the attendees have been muted. However, we always encourage you to drop your question in the Q&A or the chat box. In addition to this, a copy of the PowerPoint and the link to the recording will be sent to all the attendees. Without further ado, please allow me to welcome our speaker, even as she takes over the floor for the presentation. Ms. Blandine, you are welcome.
Thank you, Garba. Hi, everyone. Sorry for the little delay. So we have a lot to discuss today, and it's really an intro. So there will be more if you want. So don't be, I hope you won't be overwhelmed. We're trying to give you some real tools to plan, import, export, or consider it, at least consider it. So what do you need to consider for your export business plan? First, before going into details, I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. As you can hear, I have a little accent. I was born in France. I am a strategist in international business and also attraction of foreign companies to North America. So I've experience in the US, in Canada, and also in the European Union. I've been working with small and medium businesses for the past 15 years already. I work also on a lot of grants to even have more support to help you. I've launched in 2018 a Global Startup Accelerator program in partnership with the Welcoming Center and the University City Science Center that I'm sure you've heard of. I'm also an entrepreneur and business owner since 2012, and I joined in March 2020 Temple SBDC. So I'm Growth Wheel certified, and you're going to see some of those tools in my presentations, and we can dive more into that on one-on-one consulting. I'm also a certified global business professional. So you can talk to me about any international strategy, especially for tech startup, in how to plan your international growth or how to find and work with international partners. And you have to sign up. There is a contact to get a free consulting. So first, I would like to know a little bit who is in the audience. So, so Garba, if you can launch the poll.
Yeah, sure.
So that way I know a little bit more what to focus on. So that's why I want to get to know you.
Yeah, I just launched this. I don't know if they can you see the poll, please?
I see the button, but I don't see the questions. So the button of polls appeared. Let me stop share my screen and see. Oh yeah, now we can see it.
Yeah, sure.
Yes. So please, I invite everyone to answer.
Yeah, I will be ending the poll in the next 3 seconds. Got you. So I will just go ahead and share the results.
I do not see the result. You will have to do it. Sorry. Oh, here now we see it. And now I see them. So a bit more than half of you have already created your business. So some are pre-venture. Some three of you have already a business plan, but 4 of you do not have a business plan. So this is something actually we can help you with. And in your business plan, having a part about international is always helpful. Most of you are doing B2C, so business to consumer. So for example, you may want to consider more e-commerce. E-commerce could be for B2B as well, but usually it's for B2C. So that's great. And none of you have exported, so you're at the right place. This is really the first, teaser on what to think about international. So thank you for answering. What we're going to see today, so we have a bit more than an hour, then Q&A questions. And of course, we can have more another time. So first, I'm going to quickly discuss pro and cons about international business. I'm going to list all the different resources and the links so you can explore by yourself. I'm going to present you some tools. So hopefully we'll have time to go through those 4 different tools for international trade planning. Then I'm going to quickly present you more details of who we are, in case you don't know yet, and especially our next events. And we'll have plenty of time for Q&A, which is the most important thing. So quickly, our mission is to provide you with knowledge and resources. So we have different services. We have free 101 consulting. So after this program, you can request to meet me or my colleagues for specific questions. We do workshops, classes, and 95% on what to do is free of charge. Sometimes some classes, some training can have a small fee, but we're talking about $150 or things like that. So it's 95% free, but all the 101 consulting is free on demand. So use it, we're there for you. We're funded by the federal government under Small Business Administration, by the state government, so DCD, and also Temple University and Fox Business School is supporting the Small Business Development Centers. So pro and cons of international business. Is it possible for me? So I'm going to start with the cons. First, it does reduce your margins. If you think you can sell and make more money overseas, no, your product, because you will have to ship, you will have to use service providers, you may have customs, your margins will decrease, but your volume will improve, but your margins will decrease. It is time consuming and you need the CEO, the management on board. So it's a kind of rough learning curve. And there are little tools to start a little bit, have a first feedback before diving into it. But really it does take time in the strategy planning. You have more risks out of your control. Very change of currency. There are a lot of political risks. There are different risks that less. So also for the distribution, the more you have partners, so you have to be okay with that. You're dealing with more risks out of your control. And you should not sell abroad if you have an unclear value proposition. So you haven't really defined your competitive advantage, because your marketing, your offer needs to be crystal clear to be able to be translated to overseas markets. So I do see businesses in the US that can be successful locally, but it doesn't translate because they haven't done really that exercise to have a clear positioning. And it's okay. But doing that will help you for the US market, actually, and for overseas market. That if this is part of your business plan. Why you should consider selling your product or services abroad. For me, the most important thing is to stay competitive in the market, because we forget, like, most of the market is outside of the United States. Most of the population is outside of the United States. So understanding what trends are done overseas can bring new ideas that are not in the US yet. So it's very important to always feed yourself with new ideas and see what's happening out there, because it could be more opportunities. Of course, it helps to expand market potential, more customers. It helps you for economy of scale. So the more you can produce, the more you can make, the more you can reduce your marginal cost. Also, by having partners internationally, you can rethink your supply chain. Let's say you can make a product here and add something else, or finish the product overseas. So you can rethink your full supply chain, so you can reduce your cost thanks to international markets. It doesn't decrease the risks, but it balances the risks, because if the US market crashes or is in lockdown because of COVID-19, there will be other countries that may not be on lockdown or are doing better, or like, it helps to balance the risks and increase your resiliency. It does. You can leverage e-commerce, and especially now with the transition, with the pandemic, everything is done online. I've seen a lot of positive for international sales, for trade. So you can really leverage e-commerce and internet and access to international trade shows and so on. It's really fantastic. It will, if eventually you are thinking of selling your business, or it does increase your valuation, being in multiple markets. It also can give you more opportunities for exit strategies. You can be bought by a foreign company who wants to enter the US market, because the US market is still one of the largest markets in the world. So foreign companies know sometimes to go faster to enter in the US, they should buy a company. So it could be additional exit strategy for you if at some point you want to sell your business. And I want to say, it will also help you to grow, so professional development, to grow as an individual, to grow as a professional. It could to help your staff to be excited and learn new skills. It's a way to keep staff. Or attract staff. It's also a way to have different talent. You may find international employees. You may consider to hire immigrants. So you will be more. You will grow professionally, and your team as well. And that is the most fun part, I need to say. So I hope now you're excited and you think it could be possible for you. So where to start? I'm going to differentiate export and import, but I forgot to ask, is there somebody more interested? Are everybody interested in export, or some of you are interested in import? If you can just put in the chat, import or export, or both. Import, great. Do we have people with export interest? Just to make sure, because if all of you want export or all of you want import, okay, both. Okay, great. So I'm gonna just to make sure I'm relevant to you guys. So of course there are more resources for exporting, because exporting increase, revenues and taxes, and increase your growth, and you will pay more taxes. So all the governments have been supporting a lot of export. Finding resources for import is a bit more challenging, so that's normal. So that's why I'm gonna start. There are a lot of things for exporters. I would say first, you can look at what the Trade Administration has done. I put the direct links because the links do change often. So I put the direct links so you can find those pages I'm referring to. You have that PDF, which is a basic guide to exporting that is wonderful. And we do have some paper copies, or the US Commercial Services has some paper copies that is wonderful. So actually I have it here. Oops. So I recommend to consider it. It's a kind of the Bible, but you have it online. You have a lot of videos that are very helpful to give you an idea of the different steps, the paperwork needed to import. You have go-to assessments about your export readiness. So really, if you want to start somewhere, start there to read. There is also a lot of new information about e-commerce that I recommend to everyone. Then you have people there, people in Philadelphia who are there to help you. So the US Commercial Services, they have a team and they provide services to you. So services from reviewing your website, to researching partners overseas, trade shows overseas, or virtual delegations, the trade wins, that's how they call, or also you can go in person to trade missions. They are very, very diverse services. You have to pay for them, but they are affordable. I do recommend to look at their team and their services. We work constantly with them. You have also other services that for companies from Pennsylvania, they are free. So the DCD are paying consultants overseas to help you to reach those markets. So you have World to PA, you have some trade video, videos, export assistance that DCD is providing to you, and you can meet them twice a year. You can register to have meetings with them. So there are a bunch of things to look at. It's coordinating in the meetings, one-on-one meetings with international PA reps are organized by the World Trade Center of Greater Philadelphia for the region. Also, the state is providing a grant called Global Access Program, GAP. It's up to $10,000 to cover up to 75% of your international trade expenses. It includes e-commerce. So you have all the information on that website, and it's also coordinated by the World Trade Center for the Greater Philadelphia region. So don't hesitate. There are no wrong doors. You can come to Temple SBDC, you can go to the US Commercial Services, you can go to the World Trade Center. Everybody is working together to help you in your plan. I just want to mention that the GAP grant for this round is almost over. So if you're considering that, so traveling overseas, or doing some e-commerce development and so on, to look at it right now. A couple of other resources I wanted to put out there. There are a lot of information on census.gov, on Custom and Border Protection websites, and all the list of the state representatives that I mentioned that are listed, that is the direct link. So that's where to start. For the importer, so as I mentioned, there are less information out there for importers, but the Custom and Border Protections, as they're controlling both, what comes in and what goes out, you have a lot of information on that. So it's really helpful. They have great videos. You have also access to contact at the port, so Philadelphia port facility and so on. So you can really talk to people if needed. There are also, they help you to identify the rules and the tariffs of the merchandise you're going to import. So all of that is listed here. Also, if it's controlled or not, you can look what can you import. You can look at that, and also what you can bring with you when you travel. Because a lot of the first-time importer or people who travel a lot overseas may bring merchandise back in their suitcases, So really understanding what are the rules and the risks, you have that on the last link. So give me a second. I know there is a question in the chat, but I cannot see it right now. I will look at it later, but it doesn't open. So a question in the chat. Miscellaneous, oops. So I put some miscellaneous link, same thing, the census, US Department of Agriculture, especially, for food and so on, it's important. And there are also some there are some resources on the Asian nations if you're bringing things from Asia. So now we're going to dive into the tools. Intro to International Trade Planning. But I want just to check the question. So give me a second here. There is an issue with my screen.
Okay.
What is the question? I cannot see the question. It's blank.
Okay. Alice is actually asking, what is the difference between GAP and STEP grants?
It's a very good question. It's the same. So STEP is the name, the federal name. So it's the money from federal agencies given to the state. And then in Pennsylvania, they call it GAP, but it's exactly the same. But if you are in New Jersey, it may be called STEP. So great questions. Okay, perfect. So feel free to ask more questions. I love that it's interactive. So let's dive into little tools. What you have to consider, I know it's like obvious, but it's good as a reminder. So the political climate in a foreign country, like to import or export, how stable it is, the situations, economic situations, especially if you're export, what's their capability of buying your products, how they can they afford it or not. Technical, of course, like for example, if you have cell phone that you're selling overseas, but there's no infrastructure for your cell phone to work, it's not going to help. Legal for protecting your intellectual property, able to enforce contracts and all of that. Environmental, remember that some countries have harsher regulations to protect the environment. So you want to look at the environment or to import food and so on. So in general, that is very important. But also, let's say, the climate. You may not be able to deliver your merchandise during the winter, or because it's the summer when it's the winter in the US. If you're selling scarves, you won't sell it at the same time. So thinking of the environment from environmental protection, but also the climate, that is different. And social, cultural. We do have workshops on cultural differences, and that really impacts on what we buy and consume. So it's important to have that in mind. Quickly, you can hire an intern or do it yourself, starting to look at international websites, international companies, to see if you could position yourself in those markets. Is also helping you to find trends and innovative ideas. We have different resources available. So as a client of Temple SBDC, we can do some research with SBDC.net. There is a link there. You can also go at IBIS World. Google has also tools. There are a bunch of tools out there. One thing I love, and especially now, you can see so much content of virtual trade shows and international matchmaking events. So, for example, next week, there is a large conference in Barcelona about smart city technology. You have access to those meetings, and it's free or sometimes really inexpensive matchmaking events. So you can consider that, or in the food industry, like there are a ton of trade shows that you may have access now from your office or from your living room. Also, some large trade shows in the US do have an international audience, so you can check that as well. And you may have conferences on that, so you may not even need to look at overseas trade shows. There are some very large trade shows here that do have an international audience. So for example, the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas every January bring about 30% of internationals. A lot of Asia, a lot of Europeans are coming. So it's also a good way to meet people in person in Vegas or online through their virtual booth. So don't forget that. To really find to see if you have a simple and clear value proposition that you can market, and the clearer, the simplest to sell overseas. There is another question, so now I can see it. So Alice, thank you for your questions. So cat litter maker, you mean, I'm not sure what it is, or cat litter maker machines. This is something we can definitely have a one-on-one consultation in where you can get help. I would say starting with if you know your HS codes, and we're going to talk about it, to see the duties. Like, it really depends on where you are. So hopefully some of those tools I will talk to will be helpful for you, but it seems you have a clear vision on what to import. You probably have done research on the US market, so we can talk about it when you're available, or at the Q&A at the end. Perfect. So other things to consider, it is obvious, but it's good to think about it. So duties and taxes that you need to think of. What if you sell overseas, maybe your clients will have to pay additional fees. So plan that. When you import, you will you may also have to pay duties and taxes. There are a lot of forms to be filled out from the customs. There are products that are regulated, especially products, who may have a dual intent, may have a military applications, so there are more regulations, or safety like laser, or like a bunch of regulations from the border patrol, customs and border patrols, but also sometimes from the Food and Drug Administrations and or Department of Agriculture. So this is important to look at. There are free trade agreements. So it reduces or eliminates, it's not always eliminating tariffs for some products. And you have a link there. The US has agreements with 20 countries. It does change. And we had a lot of discussions about trade agreements the past 4 years. So it's interesting to look at what's happening. Something that, especially for e-commerce, you may forget, it's define your shipping and returns, because you won't be able to do the same thing as for the United States. So in the United States, usually there are strong return policy, almost everything can be returned and so on. But if you sell overseas, you may say, hey, there are no return possible. So that is good to establish it prior. Otherwise, it can cost you a lot of money. Perfect. So for e-commerce, we have classes, and I will invite you to participate. It seems most of you will be interested in e-commerce. So this is just key facts about tracking currently what type of international traffic you have, thinking of cybersecurity and regulation about data protection, like GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation, that started in Europe, and a lot of countries, and even California, for example, are following those type of rules. So your different cookies policy. So that is important when you're thinking of e-commerce. Of course, cultural language, like all the barriers, the cultural aspect that I mentioned. Also how people buy, like some it's all on their phones. So if your website is not mobile friendly, it's not going to work properly for those markets. So that is important. Online payment forms that can be multiple currency, of course, but also that can work, if you use Venmo, for example, or It doesn't matter, whatever you're using that can work in those countries. And of course, social media platforms. You know, we in South Korea, we use Kakao type of platform. It's not WhatsApp. And like there are a bunch of, WeChat for China. Like there are a bunch of different tools that are not always the same, depending on the countries, and it's important to know that. So hopefully you're not overwhelmed. I see we have another question. No, we're okay, perfect. So this is just few tools. When you will receive our PowerPoint, you will have like the PDF of those tools that you can print directly, like on legal format. So on letter format. So you can work on it on your computer, or print it and do it yourself. So one first thing I do with clients is like, look at your current network, professional network and personal network, because you may have access to foreign markets and you don't even think about it. So looking at your current advisors, your colleagues, or even some competitors on their website, you can see where they are located, if they have partners overseas, and so on. Look at like educational institutions like Temple University. They can give you access to classes, or also network. Temple University, you may not know, has a campus in Rome, Italy, and a campus in Japan, in Tokyo. So just that we can give you access to resources, for example. Any research center, authorities that you know here or overseas, binational chambers. We have also different honorary consul in Philadelphia. So you have access to a lot of immigrants, including myself, that can give you access to international markets or direct feedback. And your friends and family, people who studied overseas, or who knows, you can quickly talk to your network to have a direct feedback. And I would say usually the easiest way to go overseas is when one of your clients taking you to with you to other markets. That works especially well with B2B. For B2C, it's a little bit more complicated, but for B2C, I would recommend to use immigrants to have feedback. So where to find immigrants? There's the Welcoming Center for New Pennsylvania that I mentioned, and the binational chambers. So we have the German, the French, the UK, the Asian one. So there are a bunch of binational chambers that are available here in Philadelphia. You can talk to them, become member, start networking, and have feedback from your products. And also a lot of international students. Philadelphia is a lot of universities, and we have a bunch of international students that you can even talk to them like, hey, how would you buy that in your country? Which social media would you use? And they can definitely give you some feedback. So once you've assessed your network, I would like you to assess your risks. So just thinking of on each country, what type of risks. So this is just a checklist on Growthwheel to help you think through that. So the financial risk, what does happen that if you're not paid? Like if you lose money, what about your cash flow? So thinking first of the financial, and there are a lot of tools about financing your export, for example. About legal, I mentioned intellectual property. I need to say, in general, there are tricks to protect your your intellectual property, but really when you go overseas, you're losing control. So, and you may not decide to enforce and fight because of the cost. So what are the ways you can protect your identity? And sometimes it's like, you may not need to. You may decide that it's okay if people are copying your ideas, because as you can have new ideas all the time, it's fine to have your ideas copied. So the market, the price changes, the exchange rate, that can be very risky. if suddenly, the Canadian dollar and the US dollar, are really changing, it does affect a lot the trade. How to, tool 3, I would say, really understand your pricing. Evaluate the real cost of selling overseas, and that takes time and a lot of thinking. So it's not just looking at the market, how much you could sell your product there first, but then how stable is the market, the currency that I mentioned, and so on. All the markup that the different people you're going to involve are going to take, from freight to agent, distributors, retail stores, to if you have tariffs and duties, all that logistic in place, it can cut your margin. Some of you may say, oh, I'm a new business, I'm going to sell direct, do e-commerce. Why should I bother thinking of putting markup for distributors or agents? One of the biggest mistakes, if you don't think through, let's say you start to sell overseas, or at the beginning it's just few packages, but then it takes off. You need to find a partner that can, for example, handle the logistics in the country, or who are interested to resell your products. And suddenly you have to increase your price by 20% and you may lose the market. So even if you think right now to sell direct to consumer with as little intermediary, just the transportation and just the tariff duties involved, no agent, no distributor, no retail stores, that could change. And it's really, really hard to increase your price. So do consider that you may have to have more partners eventually to grow. There are the taxes, in some cases there is value-added taxes. It's a whole topic, but there are local taxes to consider. As I mentioned prior, the buying power of the customers in your country. Look at the local competition in your marketplace. And sometimes some products, especially like medical devices, for example, may have a cap, like the government may say, hey, if you're higher than that price, you're not entering in the market. So you can have price regulations, also anti-dumping rules, and so on. So you need to be careful where you're not always free of setting up your price. And you could have legal limitations as well. There are certain things that may not be allowed to be done as is done here. So a bunch of things to think, and we are here to help you to ask all those questions and find the answers by yourself or through professionals that can help you evaluate all those answers. Finding your international harmonized code. This is a topic that I'm passionate about. And to tell you the truth, it would be a whole 3-hour session. So I'm just going to tease you on that. And if there is interest, we can organize a workshop specialized on that. So basically, there are harmonized codes that qualify merchandise. So there are 22 sections and 99 chapters that define different categories of products. So knowing your product code helps you to do market research. So it's very important to define it. Also, it can help you to strategize how to import and export differently, because once you have that code, you will know the tariffs associated and you may consider changing things. So for example, in Canada, a cheese is defined when you have 50% or plus of cheese, it's considered cheese. So a French souffle with 65% of cheese and then flowers and eggs and milk is considered as cheese. So, which is a problem because there is a quota to protect Canadian cheeses. So to import cheese into Canada, you need to have a license for it, and there is a cap per year. So it's more challenging. So you have the choice of maybe changing your recipe to import souffle, French souffle to Canada, or American souffle, cheese souffle to Canada. Sometimes it will be just cheaper to change your recipe a little, especially if you were at 55% of cheeses in it, or usually more than one type of cheese in a cheese souffle. So you may want to change your recipe, so you would change the code so you're not part of that quota and that regulation. So this is a topic I really, really enjoy. So it looks like that. All the red parts, the 6 first digits are harmonized per country and for import-export. But then it can change depending if it's for import or export, or depending on the countries, those categories can change a little bit. FYI, because I always get confused, so the first 2 numbers are the chapters. This is called the heading. This is called the subheading. And the whole code is called commodity code. I hope you're all following. So it looks like that. And it is fun to read. I really enjoy it because it also, you kind of understand the different relationship between countries, and the trade agreements, all is in there. So here you see we are in chapter 1, 0.1. And general is when there are no trade agreements. Special is where there are trade agreements. And here they tell you which trade agreement they are. And I'm going to show you what it is, but it's not really countries. It's linked with trade agreements. So this, you can have all the details in general note page 6, a lot of fun. So those are the different trade agreements that exist. So as you see, for example, B is for Automotive Products Trade Act, and so on and so on. And here, the number 2 is for rate for less than favorable countries. So like North Korea, for example. So usually you would not touch number 2, and you will be between general and special. So with Europe, it's in general, but there are special agreements with Turkey, for example, and so on, or of course Canada and Mexico, where you should start looking first. So that's how it looks, and you can see sometimes it's free, you have no tariff, sometimes you have to pay 1 cent per kilogram, so you will have to work on your metric system. Sometimes it's just a percentage of the value, it depends. Give you an idea of the duties you have to pay. Some resources, and there are different ways, how to rule, especially if you're, for example, selling part of a product. So if you just sell part of a bike, but without the wheels, you will still have to use the code of a bike. So there are a bunch of things to consider, how to apply and how to decide for your codes. We can help you. We can organize a workshop for you on that. And there is always a customs that can be contacted and help you to define. And if really you don't know, they can decide for you, and you can send a sample and stuff like that. So there are a bunch of help to define that, and there are ways to strategize to pay less tariffs. So that was a lot. And so start thinking of your questions while I'm going through the different services and events that we have for you. And we can go back differently in those different tools. So our next, you will see we have a lot of workshops on e-commerce, as we are a center of excellence for digitalization. So we have about website planning, what you need, social media, video marketing. There are Snapchat and TikTok. So for B2C B2C products, I really recommend to look at that. LinkedIn basics for entrepreneurs, which I think it's fantastic, especially in B2B. I use LinkedIn constantly to find new leads, to check also potential clients. Like this is LinkedIn for B2 in most markets. For B2B, it's really used. It's really used in Europe. It's really used in India, especially in India. I was very impressed. Like everybody's so depending on the country, LinkedIn can be very, very powerful. But very used in Canada. You have also marketing on a shoestring, December 12th. So keep looking at our next training. So this, we have training, we have webinars. We have also on our website a lot of resources that you can look on Temple SBDC website, but also the Pennsylvania SBDC network. We are there for you. We are 16 consultants in Philadelphia that can a staff of 16 people, and we can hold your hand in individual consulting. Once again, it's free of charge. We have programs to give you access to capital, so help you to apply for loans and things like that. And we have different clinics, like legal clinics, for example. Those are our addresses in main campus and in Ambler, our office hours. So, and if you want to reach me or reach anyone from my team, use the SBDC at temple.edu. That way it can be directed to me. That's it. I hope you have a lot of questions, because I hate to speak by myself.
Okay, Blandine, thank you for a wonderful presentation. Even as we await the coming of the questions, I'm just gonna go ahead and post a 30-second survey about today's webinar. This is basically for our attendees. Remember, we always cherish your feedbacks, even as your feedbacks helps us to improve on the services we provide to you at a low cost. And in addition to this, even as it's also required by our funders. So please kindly take 30 seconds of your time, help us to fill out this survey.
So could you, so please fill out that survey. It's very important for our founders, and also how to improve it. So do it right now. If also you can tell us if it's what you expected. I know you can't wait to receive the PowerPoint and click on those links and learn more. But feel free to share, like, oh, I expected to learn more about that. So I can add it for the next time we do the webinar. There are a lot of challenges I find with our clients who wants to export or import, not knowing where to start. And sometimes it's overwhelming even just adding all those links. So let us know how we can make it easier for you. I need to say, as I mentioned earlier, there are now opportunities to have access to international trade shows and matchmaking. Please use and abuse those, because it's free or a few $100 instead of spending months on market research, sometimes directly talking to a couple of potential clients. It could be scary, but you have direct feedback from the market. And please use and abuse our international students. Open your doors for internships. There are a lot of internships that now are even done virtually. So please think of that. Temple has students. So everybody has students, but has some programs with students focused on international trade. You can have like 100 hours. A student helping you on a project. Drexel University have co-op programs, and some are actually overseas right now. So think of those resources to have first feedback on your products.
Yeah. In addition to what my speaker just said, Blandine, I'm also an international student. So what you actually said is totally right, benefiting from, benefit from Temple University as an international student. So we kindly encourage you, to drop your questions on the Q&A or the chat box. Yeah, I think we've got one. Yeah, Can you see it, or I should read it out?
Yeah, I can see. I can see the questions. Let me read it. Okay, no problem. So importing products from North Africa, and you're setting up your LLC. Yes. So what I would recommend, it's really understanding your market in the US before trying to import, because sometimes you know who you're going to sell to, how you're going to reach those markets, those customers. So yeah, feel free to reach out. But before trying to import anything, try to test your market. And sometimes the best way is importing in suitcases some samples of the products, and you know, you can take some merchandise in the suitcases. I presented a link about how much you can bring and so on, and just, you know, show it around and say, hey, would you buy that? How much? For how much? So I would recommend that before importing a container of products that you may not be able to sell. So Zachary. Okay, oh, great. Okay, so Zachary, it's a very good question. So how to import products from China? So I know less about the Chinese market. I've worked there only for one project. So I don't know if they have a database of by China, like France has or the US has. There are trade shows where like Guangzhou, I was at the Guangzhou fair, where you can find importers, not for tea. So, but I'm sure there are trade shows and where you could find directly makers of teas. The US Commercial Service can help you with identifying that, for example. But and you could receive some grants to go directly to China. General sourcing, and in general, I mentioned the US commercial services, but I want to say in general, state and federal resources will help you less for sourcing, but help you more for exporting. The best way is to go to Chinese governments, because they're trying to help their Chinese companies to sell. For example, we have the Asian American Chamber of Commerce here in Philadelphia. So I will also contact them directly, because they will be able to find shortcuts for you before planning your trip to China. So, and that is really in general, each time you want to buy something from a country, check the country website and governments. And sometimes they really have a full website, you know, by USA, by French product, by that can help you to direct and put you in relationship with potential suppliers. Yeah, Lilia, yeah, I'm glad that's what you're gonna do. Awesome. Oh, that's Alice. That is a very great. That's a very great service, and I would recommend to. So Alice is gonna offer services to help American companies to source on Alibaba, and Alibaba is growing so much, and not only for B2C but for B2B as well. So it's really something to consider. I would recommend you to request one-on-one session with my colleagues, either Sarah or Elena, because we do have some training on Alibaba. I'm not an expert on that, but definitely, so there are maybe some synergies, and I think there is definitely a need in what you're trying to do. So congratulations and good luck with that. Any other questions?
Yeah, I think, could you please check the chat box?
Yes, the best source project. Annie, I hope I say your first name correctly. It really depends on the product. It depends, you know, which country is the best source for product. There are I would say any country has something to offer, you know, depends if you're talking about food or technology products, or and finding good suppliers, it can be challenging. It can be challenging to find them, to trust them, and they may change, you know, like you visit them, the first batch is great, the second batch may be bad. There are also the US Commercial Services has a service to check backgrounds. So there are a couple of options, but it's a few $100 per company. So you could have that too, or sometimes the American Chamber of Commerce of Guangzhou, of whatever, Paris, could also help you with that. This is things we can discuss, so they can check if the company is you know, a real one and is known in the industry. But yeah, managing supply chain is work, and it sometimes it's better to go also through people in the country helping you to source and finding experts, at least for the beginning. But if you can tell us which products are you thinking? Is it consumer, you know, food product, or that would be helpful. Or we can talk about that offline another time. But,
yeah, okay, we've got one. I don't know if you can see that of Alice.
Yeah, I offered, I think that yes, Alice, you're absolutely right. The current training offered by Temple SBDC is how to get listed on Alibaba. But if you suggest it, and we can, and if we define a need jointly, we can definitely think of considering how to source from Alibaba. So we always, you know, it's always both ways. Like we have some of SBDC clients who end up also being presenters. So don't hesitate to reach out to us and brainstorm, and we can also maybe send if our requests and needs. But sourcing, it is there is a need. So let's definitely, but how to reach them, the potential clients, is another topic. But yeah. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope it was helpful.
Yeah. I think in the absence of any other question, just like what my presenter actually said, I also want to use this opportunity to especially thank each and every one of you for keeping it a day with us. My special thanks also goes to my presenter, Ms. Blandine. Thank you for your time. And also to my fellow Temple Small Business and Development team members. Thank you for your usual cooperation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your effort for making it possible for this webinar to come into existence. Now, without further ado, I would like to draw the meeting into a conclusion. Thank you once again for keeping it a day with us, and do have a nice evening. Bye-bye.